Welcome back to Chickens! I've been looking forward to doing this video for a long time, and that is, as you can see from the title, the disappointments and unexpected standouts of 2025, so far, at least. So, originally I had an idea to do this video because I thought towards the beginning of the year that I would only have till now to read because I thought I was going back to school, but let's just say that didn't work out. So now I have the rest. I still have the rest of the year to read, but I still wanted to do this video. So I will still do a kind of year-end wrap-up thing, although it'll probably look a little different this time. For one, I don't think I'll be talking about the worst books again. Simply because at least so far there's like not enough to really do that, and I'd probably have to include some like 2.75s as worst books, which I don't think is that fair. So it'll mostly probably just be a dedicated video to best books, although that'll also look a little different. I'll probably try to rank the top ones. So it won't be, I'll just show the ranking after. I'll actually try to do it in the order of the ranking. So anyways, for this video, so I had this idea because it seems, especially at the beginning of the year, I had some disappointments, but also some unexpected standouts. So we're going to talk about those today. Also, as a side note for these books, for most of them, probably won't be doing synopses because I don't usually like doing synopses. So if you want to know what any of these books are about, you just look it up. So let's get into it. So we're going to start off with the disappointments, and I want to start by defining what I call a disappointment. These aren't necessarily the worst books of the year. But what I mean by disappointments is that I either thought I would like them and I didn't like them, or I liked them but not as much as I was expecting to, if that makes sense. So, the first book I have for disappointments is To All the Boys I've Loved Before by Jenny Han. So yeah, I talked about this one in my most anticipated books for 2025 video, which by the way, don't watch that video. Or at the very least, skip the part where I talk about this book, because in describing what I think about what I thought this book was about, not only do I accidentally include a spoiler, but also it was just wrong, which, I mean, I did say it was from my understanding. So yeah, there's that. So for this one, I did like this one. I think the problem with this one is that my expectations were too high. I think I was expecting this to be like a 4.5, if not 5 star, and I gave this book 3.5 stars. And sometimes when I think about it, I wonder if that's being generous. So yeah, there were some things I liked. Like I liked what I called like the girl's girl aspect of it. If you've read this book, you might know what I'm talking about. So I liked that, and I guess the writing and stuff. But the things I didn't like, I didn't care for the romance, aka I was not sold on Peter. And I also didn't like the kind of cliffhanger ending. I think that was the biggest thing for me. Now, here's the thing. I understand when you're writing a series, you want to leave some things unresolved so that people pick up the next book. Like, I do understand that. But I just don't like cliffhanger endings, because sometimes it kind of feels like you're manipulating people into picking up the next book. So, yeah, I just don't really care for that. Don't have much else to say. So, yeah, I liked it, but not as much as I was expecting, so yeah. So I think I also said in my most anticipated books for this year that I had some World War II books coming up, and I was looking forward to those. And the ones I've read so far, they were all a disappointment in one way or another. So we're going to talk about all of those. So first up, we have Number the Stars by Lois, Lowry, and I know a lot of people love this book, but to me, this book was just okay. So, you have the problem of some books being longer than they need to be, right? And that problem seems especially prevalent nowadays. But you also have the problem of some books being too short for their own good. And I feel like that's the problem with this book. I felt like it was too short, that there was so much more that could have been done with the story had it been longer. Now maybe. Maybe I'm just saying that because I'm not the target demographic for this book. But yeah, just I felt like there could have been more there. So that was a bit of a disappointment. The next World War II book was such a crime against humanity. I didn't even want to talk about it at first, but I guess it's now or never. So the next book, World War II book, was The Zone of Interest by Martin Amis. This was probably the biggest letdown of the whole year because out of all the World War II books, this was the one I was looking forward to the most, and I DNF'd this one. So I was kind of looking up the author because I wanted to try to figure out how to pronounce his last name, and I found out apparently this author is dead. So maybe it's, but like, can someone who is close to him or someone who knows anything about this book, can someone tell me why this man thought it would be a good idea to have a lustful guy as a POV character? And by the way, lustful is a big understatement, but I don't think I can say the most accurate word to describe this man. So, and I say POV character because I didn't realize as I was reading this that this is in multiple POVs. So there's that. I guess that makes more sense why, as I originally said, um, all the time that how much of this book as I read, I was either confused or disgusted. So, and the reason I didn't want to talk about this at first is because I felt like I should have seen this coming because in the synopsis it literally says that this guy wants to have this affair with this woman. But even that doesn't necessarily translate to guy is sexually driven all the time. I mean, oh, okay. Maybe not all the time, but enough to make me hate it. So yeah. Yeah, that was more than a disappointment. So, alright, we get one more World War II book to talk about. And unfortunately, for the rest of the disappointments, I will have books to hold up. So, the last World War II book to talk about is The Tattooist of Auschwitz by Heather Morris. My voice is, I don't know what's good. Sorry. Um, so I gave this book 3 stars, which, I mean, I think that's about right. Um, this book, I don't know. So a lot of this book felt like just like words on a page, and I know that's like literally what a book is, but usually when you're enjoying a book, you're not thinking about the fact that it's just words on a page, and I don't usually feel like a book is just words on a page. This, I don't know. Now, I will say with this book, and actually all the World War II books I've read or tried to read, I read, or however much I did read of them, was like in a day. And I'm guessing that's not how World War II books are meant to be read. So maybe if I had read this over a longer period of time, like maybe like a week, maybe I would have liked it more. But at the same time, around the time that I read this, I was still in my I need to be drawn in to really like it phase. So maybe that would have made a difference. I'm curious what my thoughts on this would be now, but from what I remember, there are some parts that I don't really want to read again, so I don't know what to do with this one. So now we have another DNF, and at first I wasn't sure if I was gonna come back to this one, but then I found out something about this book that ensures that I will not be coming back to it, which we will get to that later. And that is Tilly in Technicolor by Mazey Eddings. I'm still not sure how to pronounce that author's name. So yeah, I just randomly found this at the bookstore, read the back, and thought it sounded interesting. Um, this is like the back seemed to suggest that this would be a romance between a girl with ADHD and a boy with autism, and I thought that sounded interesting as someone who has both ADHD and autism. Um, so yeah, I thought that would be interesting, but I was worried that this book would have spice because the cover is a little suspicious. But so I got about halfway through this book and there wasn't spice, but one thing that there was, which I for some reason didn't expect, was that this book is pretty woke. So yeah, so I feel like with like those who don't care for that stuff, there's some of those people who were like, "Oh, I read books for escapism. I don't want to hear about political or social issues at all." I wouldn't say I'm one of those people because I understand with like books and movies, like there's always some kind of message. So if people want to write about that kind of stuff, they should be able to. But of course, it becomes a problem. It becomes a problem when it feels like stuff doesn't really add to the story and it feels like it's just there so the author can be like, oh hey, I'm on the right side of history, guys. To be honest, I don't know if I'd say that the stuff in this book doesn't add to the story. I think it's just I didn't like it. So I first had a sign that this would be woke from the little intro note, this little dedication, which I will read to you right now. It says, to my fellow neurodivine individuals navigating a world not built for them, your brain is beautiful and I'm so glad you're here. And it's not even that that statement is necessarily wrong, but it's just that, like, my brain was kind of like, oh, what do you want done about that? Like, I know some people like like to me that was giving the system is against you so we need to tear it down and institute communism, which I know that might sound like a bit of a stretch to get from all that, but it's actually not the most far-fetched thing considering that this book includes several stabs at capitalism. Yeah, which I mean, like economics, like I understand it, but it's not, and I understand, like like I'm not that into it, but I understand it somewhat, and I know that no system made by humans is perfect, but I just don't think that capitalism is this big bad system that people love to paint it as. So, but that alone, like I could have probably gotten over that, like those kinds of comments, like it's annoying, but it's not enough to make me put down a book. But then there was also some LGBT stuff. So the first taste of this, so we have our main guy talking about two of his friends that are in a relationship. And when I first saw the names, I thought it was just like a regular gay couple. But then our main guy refers to one of the people in the relationship using they, them pronouns. That is. Uh, so with like LGBT stuff, like as seen through my best books of last year, there are some times when I can look past the kind of gay stuff and still enjoy the story. Maybe I shouldn't be like that, but that is how it is. But when it comes to like gender stuff, that's a no. No, not say like I know bringing up all this stuff, expressing those opinions. I know some people are probably gonna want to argue with me in the comments and stuff, but I'm just here to. Let me just say, like, I'm not here to argue with anyone about that kind of things. I've tried to put my days of getting into arguments about political stuff in the comment sections behind me. So, yeah, I'm not here to argue about any of this stuff. I'm just here to tell you that it was in this book and I did not like it. Though I'm not even sure although more that I think about it, I think what it was that like made me put down this book is that we started to get somewhere in the relationship like between our two main characters, and it just didn't seem good enough that it was worth reading all the woke stuff. So yeah, there's that. But then we're getting into, so at first I was like, I put it down, but I was like, okay, well, I'll come back to it. But then I found out something about this book that guarantees I will not come back to it. Remember earlier when I said I was worried that this book would have spice? Well, so a while ago I found this website that um that includes like has these like spice ratings for like various books. I'll link that website down in the description. It's called romance.io. So I found the website and I recently began like looking up all these books on that website. So I thought just out of curiosity to look up this book and see what the spice rating would be. And it was marked as open door. That's an immediate no. Okay, my suspicions were correct. So, so that's all to say. I will not be continuing reading this book. I will be unhauling it. At this rate, I might just throw this book out because, especially since this is a supposedly YA book, like I found in the teen section, which, like, I know people have already talked about this, but like seriously, why do authors think it's okay to put open door scenes in YA books? Like, what's up with that? So yeah. Oh, no, why am I smiling? That's just. Alright, in the last book for the disappointments pile would be Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Feeney. Okay, so before reading this book, I heard pretty mixed reviews on this book. Some people absolutely loving this book, and some people not really liking it. But it seems like there are more people who like this book than who don't like this book. In fact, I read one of these negative reviews on Goodreads, and the person was like, everyone I know who's read this book has loved this book, so I've come to the conclusion that I must have read a different book. That's yeah, so I guess there are more people who like it than who don't like it. But I thought I would be one of the ones who liked this because the only other Alice Feeney book I've read was Good Bad Girl, and I really liked that one. But even though I really liked it, there were some problems I had with it. But I was thinking, based on who liked this book, that those problems would not be present in this book, and I would like this book more. That's not what happened. Now, I will say, the problems I had with Good Bad Girl weren't really present in this book, so I got that right. But I had different problems with this book. So, first of all, this book was a lot spookier than I expected, but I mean, like, of course, this book takes place at like a random church in the middle of nowhere. It's no, not random church, abandoned church in the middle of nowhere. So I don't know what I was expecting with this one. And also, another thing about Good Bad Girl is that in the first half, when things were kind of slower, one thing that was good about it was that it had lots of good quotes. And this one, there weren't really a lot of good quotes. Like, there was a few, as you've seen by my tabs, but not enough. Then there's the twist. It seems to be the biggest point of contention for whether people liked or didn't like this book. So you have the people who liked it, who loved the twists, thought they were, like, I guess, good. And then there's the people who didn't like the twists and thought that they didn't make sense or something. I wouldn't say I fall into either of those camps. So while I was reading the twists, like while I was reading this book, I thought that the twists were good, but they weren't jaw-dropping, shocking, you know? Um, but then I started to think about some of the twists more. And so, like, the first twist that's at the end, because there is a twist a little bit earlier in the book, although I was I think I got confused when I was reading that, because when we got to that twist, I was like, didn't we know this already? But I think I was just confused. So yeah. And then with this one, so the first twist that's like at the end, I feel like once it's fully explained, it's kind of like, okay, and like it doesn't it doesn't really make much of a difference until we get to some of the other twists. And I also felt like it was more of a twist for us as the readers than the characters, if that makes sense. But then with the other twist, so with this book, I was reading it for my reading challenges. So I read the first half of this book on one day, and then I read the second half of this book on one day about a month later. So in between that time, I watched Lexi Nulinova's review of this book, and one thing that she said about like all the twists at the end, with like having so many twists at the end, that it was doing too much. Which I remember watching that at the time and thinking that wouldn't be a problem for me, because I remembered she did a similar thing in Good Bad Girl and I liked that. But then I finished this book and I thought about the twists and what she'd said, and I was kind of like, oh, I see what you mean. So yeah, and I think for like, of course, I can't say which twist because of spoilers, but I feel like with one of the twists at the end, it felt almost unnecessary. Um, so yeah, I could definitely see that. And also, in general, I thought the ending was too dragged out. Like, can someone tell me why that last chapter was necessary? So, but again, at the time reading this book, I think I thought a lot of endings were too dragged out, so maybe that was just me being an impatient reader. So, yeah. So, I give this 3 stars. Sometimes I wonder if that's being generous, and I probably won't be keeping this one. These tabs are just, I didn't highlight, I just tabbed things, so, yeah, probably won't be keeping this one. So. Alright, so the next part of this video, we're going to be talking about my unexpected standouts for this year so far. So, to define unexpected standouts, these aren't necessarily the best books of the year, although I will say most of these are being considered. Most of these probably will be talked about again when I talk about the best books. But how I define it is that either I didn't think I would like this book, and I liked this book, or I liked this book more than I expected to. So, yeah, let's just get into it. So, this first unexpected standout is really unexpected, so much so that it threw off kind of the rest of my expectations for this book, at least for a little while, and that would be All the Dangerous Things by Stacy Willingham. So, um, So yeah, I did not think I would like this one, because the person that I heard about this book from, all the books that I've read because of her, I either didn't like or didn't like as much as I expected, uh, or didn't like as much as she liked them, I should say. So when I got to this book, I was expecting to not like any book that she liked. Um, but with this one, I gave 4 stars, which is still not as much as she gave this book, but that's more than I expected. Now I will say I didn't like the first half as much, but then when we get to the second half and things start happening and there's like twists and turns, then that made me like them more, and kind of just like how the pieces of the puzzle come together. It's really cool. So, and I will say I'm not sure that I'm not my master, I will say, I thought through more of what I was going to say about the disappointments than it was about the unexpected standouts, so you might see me struggling to talk. Well, you will see me struggling to talk for those unexpected standouts. Um, so yeah, but so I remember I said it in the reading blog where I read this, that I liked it, but I didn't think I would have liked it if I hadn't forced myself to read it all in 2 days. So, yeah, I think this is when I realized that reading a book in one sitting, forcing myself to read a book in one sitting kind of would make me like it more than I would have if I read it, because I was still on my need to be drawn in to really like it. But reading a book in forcing myself to read it in one sitting was kind of a cheat around that. So, yeah. This next unexpected standout, I didn't rate it very highly, but I was still thinking about it for a good amount of time after I read it. So I feel like that's the theme you're gonna see with like these unexpected standouts. And that book is the Christy Miller Collection Volume 3. So yeah, this is as far as I've gotten to in the Christy Miller series so far. So this is as far in the collections I've got. I still haven't read volume 4 yet, but so far this collection has been my favorite of the collections. Yes, yeah, I usually count read as collections. And especially one thing that ties together, one thing I really liked about this one was Katie. So, if you haven't read this series, Katie is Christy Miller's best friend. Though I remember at one point I remember the point in the series in which she was introduced, but I don't remember exactly at one point in the series she earned the title of best friend. So I'd seen her before, but I don't know but what it was about this book, but I really liked her in this book. She was just fun and funny, and she reminded me of someone I knew, and I wasn't sure, but for some reason I was here for it. So yeah, so Katie stole the stole the stole the show, at least in the first 2 books in this collection. The third book in this collection, she isn't really in as much, but yeah. So I give this 3 stars because it wasn't spectacular, but I did have fun this one. So, oh, and I also found out while reading this book that Katie has her own kind of spin-off series, um, which I will be getting to that one. Although, about the Christy Miller series, so I plan to get in the series as far as the married years, um, but I just want to know, for people who have read the series, um, is the Sierra Jensen selection, like, are those necessary to understand what's happening in like the college and married and even Katie's series? Because I'm not really interested in those, so I just want to know if they're necessary to understand what's happening. So if you know that, please comment down below. So yes. Okay, so the next unexpected standout is P.S. I Still Love You by Jenny Han. So this is the second book in the To All the Boys I Loved Before series. I know the first book was a bit of a disappointment, but I had no choice because of that ending. I had to continue on. But of course, because I didn't like the first one as much as I expected to, I didn't really know what to expect with this second book. But surprisingly, I did like this book more. I gave it 4 stars. Um, this book, there were the writing and the vibes, which I obviously loved for the first book, but there was also some improvements. Like I liked the romance better. I don't really know what it was, and of course, there was also a better ending. So yeah, this is just fun, and then there's the things I didn't care for were kind of better in this one. And also, I will just say this, and this is probably true of all 3 books, but it is most accurate to this one. Kitty is a vibe. So yeah. Alright, sometimes it feels like this next book on this list is on here simply because I didn't absolutely hate it. So, yeah, I don't know if that so I guess my expectations were like so low that this it's I don't know. So that is The Atonement Child by Francine Rivers. Um, so yeah, I was not looking forward to this book because I do not like the pregnancy trope, and that feels almost wrong to say in this opinion, in this instance, because this is not just that. This is pregnancy as a result of a really bad event, if you know what I mean. Um, so yeah, I wasn't looking forward to that. Um, what do I say about this book? I think um, re- really what I wanted to try this book is because I wanted to kind of test the waters, see how good Francine Rivers' writing really is. And I will say, like, her storytelling abilities definitely still comes through in this book. Like it was really good. So, um, I will say so. Like, uh, if you look at my Goodreads, there's not really a rating for this book, and that's because I said like it definitely deserves like at least 4 stars, but that's not the most reflective of my enjoyment reading this. Um, so yeah, so I'm not sure what rating would be for that, but it is a pretty good book, and so yeah, I don't know what else to say. The next unexpected standout is The Solace of Water by Elizabeth Byler Younts. So I will say I didn't really like this book at first because I wasn't drawn in. But then, of course, while reading this book and while reading some other books in between, I started to not like me needing to be drawn in. So I tried while reading this book. I can't remember exactly how far I was into this book, but I tried to get out of needing to be drawn in by trying to appreciate aspects of this book without being drawn in. And to my surprise, it worked. I ended up appreciating the story more and the relationships and stuff. And so, but even after I finished that, I thought it was just gonna be like just a solid read. But then, um, while I was doing while I was filming my review for my recent reads, I realized that I didn't really have anything negative to say about this book, and that caused me to kind of think about this book more. Um, so yeah, this book kind of became more special for me in the thoughts after while reading it, which again was a theme I was going to say. Now, sometimes when I think about it, there are some parts that weren't necessarily bad, but were kind of uncomfortable, which is maybe why it doesn't get a full 5 stars. So, and maybe I still stand by that 4 star rating, but this is really one of the best books I've read so far this year. So, yeah. And the last book I have for unexpected standouts is How to Disappear by Sharon Huss Roat. So, I wasn't looking forward to this book because um I I'd heard about this book like years ago, like probably around the time it was coming out. But then I saw it again when I was looking through I was looking at my Goodreads reviews for a book I didn't like, which was Screenshot by Donna Cooner. And I saw this book in people who liked this book also like this book. So, but I because I didn't like that book, I for some reason added this book, How to Disappear, to my TBR, and trying to think about it, I'm like, why did I even add that book to my TBR if I thought if it said like people who like this book, and you didn't like the first book. So, but I will say, I am glad I added this book to my TBR and read it because this book is so good. Ooh, it's hard to even say what I liked about this. It's I don't know how to sum up what I liked about this book. Like the story's good, I guess. The characters I think are somewhat good. The romance I surprisingly liked, and I mean I don't know if I'd say I was drawn in, but like I I was fine if for however long I was reading it. It's just like it was good. Now there is like for the first like 100 and so pages there's like absolutely no language, and then literally on page 110 there's an A word, and then after that there's a few other bad words sometimes, but it's not as frequent as in other secular books. So, and then also there is a little bit of the self-love thing, which is why I only gave this book 4.5 stars, because there's one point, I don't know what was in the book, but I was like, this is feeling like a 5-star. Like, it's, so yeah, I'm just rambling and I'm not even going off most of my notes for this one, but this is really good. Again, these last two are like really really high contenders for the best books of 2025, and I will be very surprised if another book knocks them out. So, yeah, that is the end of this video. I think the first half went better, but in the second half filming it, I was kind of like, blah, 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 but hopefully you guys still enjoyed it, and yeah, goodbye.